So, but no, I mean, it's.
I'll get some information.
That's good.
She would mix it around to make it look.
At this time, we will call to order our regular city council meeting for September 23rd, 2019. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Judy, let the roll call show that everyone's here except for City Clerk Deaton.
Thank you.
And it looks like we might be missing Chief Vogel from Fire.
I heard the sirens going.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
All 3 rigs
Thank
went
you.
out.
Yeah, something's up.
We'll move on to the approval of City Council minutes of September 9th, 2019.
I move the minutes.
I'll second. Oh, you can have it.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. We have no bills this evening, so we'll move on to the approval of the agenda.
Can we amend the agenda to allow our guests to take the first shot?
I agree with that. And what, we were talking about our friends from 52nd First, so
2-1, yeah.
could we, if we get a second on that, move that to number 1?
I'll second that.
Any further discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. So we will put 52-1 at number 1. Tonight's consent agenda. Councilmember Parisian.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to have line item number 2 removed and brought down to new business for discussion. I'll make that motion.
Well, I'll support the amended agenda.
Okay, so I'm sorry, did you make the motion to put that at the end of the agenda?
Yes.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? Okay. At this time, we'll open the floor for public comment. Please remember to state your name and address.
Ryan Lair, 716 Grand Court. Yesterday, Sunday afternoon, I had the pleasure of accompanying our city council member Carl Richards to his 1964 high school reunion, and what a blast it was. It was graciously held by the Riverbank Golf Course, and I want to thank all the people at Riverbank for giving such a wonderful reunion to these gentlemen and ladies of 1964. It was also great to see the South Lyon High School. It was as Bartlett is, where Bartlett is now. And you can totally see the difference and changes in how times has flies, but it's never forgotten. And it was nice meeting the people from 1964 and what an impact they made in South Lyon. So thank you, Carl, for having me come. And Carl won a mum, and so did I, so it was great. So we're both a couple of flower owners. I just hope I don't kill the damn thing. Thank you. Have a night.
Thank you.
Good evening, Jim Hamedi, 1189 Horseshoe Drive. I wanted to announce that I will be holding my City Council meet and greet next Monday at 6 p.m. at Lucas Coney Island at 22689 Pontiac Trail. I also wanted to, for those who are not aware of it yet, to announce that tomorrow the Salem South Lyon Library will be holding the Meet the Candidates at 7 p.m. It would be wonderful if everyone in South Lyon could attend. I understand that it's going to be taped and shown on Channel 19, as well as available on the website. I also want to announce that I have launched my social media sites. You can look for me at Jim4 South Lion, and that's the number 4, on Twitter. And my email address is actually the same, jim4southlion@hotmail.com. And you can follow me on Facebook, where I'll be announcing my positions and my policies and my vision for the future. And I also want to thank Paul Zelnick for spending that 24 hours, especially the grueling overnight, and the entire community that came and supported him for the American Cancer Society Men Wear Pink. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, at this time, we will close public comment and move on to the discussion of downtown. Mr. Donahue.
Hello, everybody. Well, okay, run through some events quick. As we know, we've got Downtown Kids Trick or Treat coming up October 24th. Got an expanded program for that. We've got a pet parade involved and more music at Four Corners. We want to thank Slara for their involvement this year to really expand that event. Norm Foltz, our newest member of the DDA until later tonight. Oh, no, actually, by action he did. Norm is going to be the chair of the Kids Trick or Treat. So then we've got Ladies Night Out, November 15th. That's the Downtown Ladies Night Out. A little bit of confusion with an event upstairs in the South Line Hotel, but this is the all-business Downtown Ladies Night Out, November 15th. Plans moving forward, we had a committee meeting today, Cool Yule for December 6th and 7th, and then the South Lion Eve, a new event for December 31st. Those plans are moving forward. Of course, Pumpkin Fest this weekend. Good luck to everybody involved. Hopefully you have good weather all the way through. September 30th, business survey responses due. I haven't checked. I know we've had quite a few, but I don't know what the number is. Do we have a new number? 17? Looking forward to having Gary Fagan on the DDA board. Gary brings a wealth of experience back from earlier years on. He's a go-getter, so look out, here comes Gary. That's a good thing. And then we want to thank Jennifer Donegan for her years of service on the DDA board. She was always very thoughtful and great person. I want to personally thank Tim Wilhelm for all of his support and advice when I was a new person on board here as a staff member, new position, getting into some territories we hadn't been in with the DDA. I want to thank Tim for all of his help over the years, and good luck, Tim, to you. And that is really all I have. I put a timeline down for the Veterans Memorial. It's going to be fast and furious between now and November, but it's going to be exciting. We'll get that done.
Very exciting. Councilmember Kurtzwell.
Thank you. First of all, I want to just say, I don't know how you did it, but you got Gary to agree to come back on the DDA. I just have to tell you, I think Gary is just probably one of my favorite individuals in the city. He is just so committed, and Gary works behind the scenes, and he gets things done. I mean, look what he's done at a Good Day Cafe. It's tough finding a spot down there to park in, to get lunch in the afternoon. People are packing those picnic tables on the outside. He just has a good sense of trend, if you know what I mean. I mean, he just knows. So I think having Gary on the DDA, I didn't want to talk to him prior to tonight, but I'm sure I'll stop over the next week or so and chat with him, so it's good. Additionally, I want to let you know that today I was visiting a client in the downtown, and I had to drive around about 2 times because I couldn't find a parking spot at all in the downtown. So
Good.
That's a good thing. 4 years ago, that would have been a very different story. But when I was downtown, here's what I noticed. The windows were going in the Art Craft Building. They looked absolutely fabulous. Dana Johnston was painting on Grand Trunk. Phenomenal Halloween scene that she's got on there. The business across the street was also getting painted. 104, is it Salon?
Yeah, 104 is getting a new paint job,
It's
too.
getting a new paint job. I said, you've got to be, all this activity was just going on. And then, as I drove south on Pontiac Trail back to my office, the business center or the strip mall, the little strip mall that's there by South Lion Woods, they're redoing their parking lot. So that's a ton of money being dumped in. So I just said, incredible, the investment that's going in this town in just a small period of time, just today. So congratulations to you, congratulations to the DDA. They're working hard, and I think they deserve a ton of credit for what they're doing and investing in the city.
They do a great job. They're a great
They do.
group. Thank you.
Anyone else have anything for Bob tonight? Thanks, Bob.
Thank you.
With Chief Vogel out, we'll go to Chief Sovic. Anything for our police chief report tonight?
Just a reminder, Pumpkin Fest coming this weekend. We're going to be inundating our Facebook page with street closures and detour routes, and the posted no parking signs around the detour, so we'll just kind of keep updating you as much as possible on our Facebook page. Lake Street Cruising tomorrow starts at 6 o'clock p.m. as opposed to 6:30 p.m. as the last one of the events of the season. And you might notice a lot of the restriping around some of the crosswalks. The DPW has been out working hard. Tomorrow, starting at 4:30 in the morning, Doug and his crew are going to be marking 7 handicap spots in the downtown area, starting at 4:30 in the morning. So if you see them, just give them a shout out and a thank you for working so hard.
All right. Anyone have anything for Chief? All right. Chief. All right, we're on to new business number 1. We're going to welcome our friends from 52 First, Honorable Judge Travis Reeds and Honorable Judge David Law. Thanks for being here, guys.
Thank you, Mayor Pelchak. All right, Mr. Mayor and council members, good evening, and we appreciate the opportunity to be back tonight. We're really here today just to talk a little bit about the court. I know you have a lot on the agenda, we both know that, so we're going to try and keep it as short as we possibly can. Probably blow through it pretty quickly, but if you have any questions at the end, obviously, please feel free. Judge Bondi wanted to be here tonight. I don't think he's going to be able to make it, so that may keep it even a little shorter for us. But we really just want to talk about what we do, how we do it, maybe why we do it a little bit, and see if you have any questions. So I have Judge Reeds with me, which is a pleasure. I'm very lucky to be able to work with him and Judge Bondi at the court. Likely the council members know, but for anybody in the audience, the communities that the court covers, South Lyon, Lyon Township, Novi, Walled Lake, Wixom, Commerce Township, City, the Milford Township, the village, and Highland Township as well. Walled Lake, Wixom, Village of Wolverine Lake. I think that just about covers them. So we have a pretty wide geographic area with a lot of residents, obviously, in there. We as judges feel very fortunate that the city of South Lyon is in that jurisdiction under that umbrella of what we cover. It's obviously a wonderful community, residents. The administration's terrific to work with. Your police department does a fabulous job. The testimony that they provide, they're professionals, well-trained, they treat people well. We see that every day that they're in there. And also, your attorneys. Your prosecutor, Chuck Snell, does a nice job. I know Lisa, she'll do a tremendous job as well. So we're really looking forward to continuing working with the city. I know Judge Reeds wants to jump in on a few things, and I'm going to jump in as well. We're going to go back and forth real quick. Thanks.
I'd like to join Judge Law in thanking you for having us. You know, it really is a pleasure having South Lyon in our district. I mean, it's such a great town that we both live here. So if that doesn't say it, I don't know what would. And I would like to join Judge Law in acknowledging the good work that Chief Sovic and his officers do for the city. It's a pleasure to see professionals in court. I mean, there's not just lawyers as professionals, but the law enforcement, if they're good, and South Lyon is good, it's a pleasure to work with them too. So I wanted to talk a little bit about what we do. The 52nd District Court is a statutory court, so we handle certain types of cases as prescribed by law, but we do civil cases and criminal cases. And all the criminal cases in Michigan start in the district courts. So we do all the misdemeanors, start to finish, and then we start all the felony cases, and they either stop at our court or they go up to Pontiac to be finished by the circuit court judges. That's actually a pretty big deal. We have a high volume. The 52nd First Division is one of the highest volume courts in the state. We do around 50,000 cases a year, which is a lot for 3 guys, but we get it done. And a lot of those cases are very quick. things like your civil infractions, speeding tickets, stoplight tickets, things of that nature. Things that take a little more time, though, are the misdemeanor cases and some of the more complex civil cases. Those cases are under $25,000 in value, and all of the landlord-tenant cases. So again, that's partly where our volume comes from. And again, many of those cases are very quick.
I do want to touch on one thing. We handle a lot of cases. We don't get too many cases out of South Line, to be honest with you, but we do get some. And your prosecutor, he has to say no to people sometimes, or resolve. He's very good at resolving things when it should be resolved, I feel, trying something when it needs to be tried. And that's a skill. But also having people that come in and have to deal with him, deal with the court system, I think they leave feeling they've been heard by, well, I would hope the judges, but also the city attorney or the prosecutor. At least, hey, he may not give them the answer all the time that they're looking for. That's not his job, represent the city. But I do believe very strongly they've been heard, they feel like they heard, they know they've been heard when they leave the courtroom, even if they necessarily didn't get the result they were hoping, fingers crossed, when they walked in the door.
And the city of South Line let's start off with saying the city of South Line is a very safe community to live in. And again, a lot of that's due to our law enforcement. We like to think that as judges, we're helping protect the community as well with our job. Give you a couple statistics, because that's my thing. Last year, the city of South Line had 29 drunk driving cases and 100 traffic misdemeanors, 49 non-traffic misdemeanors. So those are your driving on a suspended license tickets, things of that nature, shoplifting cases, simple assaults, things like that. And we process those day to day. We do them on Tuesdays usually, sometimes on Mondays, but if you want to see your city attorney in action.
Live and in action.
Live and in action. Come on in on a Tuesday. We'll give you a tour. We'll buy you a cup of coffee. This is the community's court, so everyone's welcome to come in. We would love to have you. And it's a pleasure. We work there. It's really the community's court. We just work there.
And I like to highlight that as well. We mean that sincerely. We have residents come in all the time. They'll watch cases. Sometimes a resident may have a child that they would like to bring in to watch some cases too. Usually it's a criminal type case. Judge Reeds can too. We can be extra grumpy on those days. So if we have to put on a bit of a show, we can, no problem. Just let us know. But in all seriousness, parents bring in their child all the time to watch cases, to see what's going on, give them a little flavor of what the ramifications of a poor choice could be, and to see their district court judge in action. Along those lines, we do participate in a number of programs. We do a court in school program, so we don't just have to have a student come into court. We also try and get into the different schools. South Lyon schools have used us. Walled Lake School Systems used us. Novi has used us. So we'll go in and actually bring real cases into the schools. Real pretrials, sentencings, we'll actually have 1 or 2 cases that we know somebody's going to be cuffed and taken away in front of the students, so that the students can see, like I said, also in that type of setting, the ramification of what a poor choice they make, what that consequence could be. We usually try and pick cases where it's a younger defendant maybe,
So it's more relatable.
right, so that's faced a choice that these students are likely facing out in the community, whether it's alcohol, drugs, whatever, theft. We get a lot of theft from the mall type cases. So whatever we can use to try and make an impression on a young person, we do.
And try to get to them before they come see us as a defendant. In other words, we are both of the same mind, and so is Judge Bondi, that being a judge doesn't stop at 5 o'clock when the court closes. You have to be out in the community. You have to be trying to reach out and let the people know not only you're there for them, but we're trying to do things that are of preventative nature as well. And I think it's impactful, like Judge Law says, if you have a young person who's relatable, and geez, this is their second drunk driving offense, and the handcuffs go on, and the students in the audience are oohing and awing, and we talk to them afterwards, and we explain about the consequences of decisions, and when you're faced with these, which way should you go? And I think it's a good program. We're trying to expand it actually into the middle schools, which we started last year. It sounded a little young at first, but the reception was very good. Things like vaping, other things which are more modern problems, they're in the middle schools too. Let's not kid ourselves. So we're trying to get to the young people as early as we can.
I hate to date myself like this, but the decisions these young people are facing nowadays isn't anything that I had to face when I was their age, and it's getting younger and younger. So that's why instead of high school, we're taking it even younger to take cases in there, and then also discussions too. We'll go in and talk to students as well. A couple questions that I get asked quite frequently as a judge as I'm out and about. How do you sentence somebody And what's the favorite thing about your position? What's your favorite thing about being a judge? Sentencing real quick, like Judge Reed's mentioned, we handle a wide variety of misdemeanor cases from start to finish. If somebody pleads guilty in front of us or is found guilty, we'll send them down typically to the probation department for an interview. We'll get a report back about that defendant. Tells us everything about them. What we're really looking for is to find out what we can do as judges to make sure they don't commit another offense, right? Don't put the community at risk. So it'll talk about if there's an alcohol issue, it's highlighted in there, a drug issue, a mental health issue, whatever that may be, and then we take those steps to try and figure out a plan in conjunction with the probation department and the defense attorney too. Many times the defense attorney knows their client has an issue and they want to help that person. And we'll put a plan together with services to try and help them, that defendant, going forward so they're not recommitting crimes. Also, my favorite thing, and I'm guessing Judge Reed's is on the same page too, is participating in the sobriety courts. So all three of the judges in the building participate in that program. We oversee the sobriety court cases. We have drug court as well, and vet court. Judge Reed's participates, oversees the veterans that come in on that particular docket. Those are specialized dockets where we see those defendants much more often. A typical defendant, you may sentence them to do certain things, you may never see them again. On these cases, they come back in front of us twice a month. They're working with the probation department quite often. And so to see that transformation over about an 18-month period of intensive counseling, services, probation, meeting with judges, it's very gratifying, the success that we have found we're able to have as the program with people that have issues like that.
And we, as a judge, you see a lot of bad things. Unfortunately, you see people at their worst oftentimes. I absolutely agree with Judge Law. One of my favorite parts about this job is going to the graduation ceremonies that we have for our specialty courts and having the graduates make their brief remarks, their statement about the transformation that they've undergone and how their life is so much better. And they have houses and they have great jobs and they're getting married and they're having children and they're doing all these things that many of us just take for granted. And they would never have been able to do that if they hadn't been able to get their lives under control. Yeah, jump in.
I'll be 100% honest with you. We deal with a lot of cases every day, all week. It can be a little bit of a treadmill sometimes, or the wheel, right? And then sobriety court comes up. It's an extra docket that we have to do. Those graduations, when I sit there and listen to the graduates talk about the program and their transformation and everything, really recharges my battery about participating in that program and doing the extra work. It really is something. And I don't know if you want to talk about the graduation.
Sure, and the Veterans Court too, same type of thing. A special program dealing with veterans who come into the court system on some sort of misdemeanor offense. And let's face it, these men and women have earned our respect, but they've also oftentimes brought things back with them, injuries that you can't see. And we try to tailor the counseling and the services that we can put them with to try to help them get control of all that. And that's transformative as well. As Judge Law said, we have graduation ceremonies, and we have one this Wednesday. And we would invite all of you to come. It's open to the public. It'll be at the Wixom Community Center this time. It's growing big enough now where we're actually blown out the courthouse capacity. So now we're going to start going to the various different community centers that will have us and have our ceremonies there. So it's really neat to see. It's emotional. The friends and family are there. The participants make speeches, and it's really, really very rewarding.
And we realize it's late notice. Do you get emails or any invitation to that? Because we would like to make sure that you do in the future.
I don't believe that I have.
Well, we're going to make sure that
We'll make sure that gets corrected.
because it should.
Other than that,
That's our condensed version.
That's our condensed version.
We pared it down a lot, so.
Well, I want to thank you very much for being here. Does anyone have anything for Councilmember Kurtzwell? Go ahead.
I had 2 questions. I'm just curious, on your specialty courts, what is the rate of recidivism? When they graduate, do they really graduate, or is there that period where they come back? That's the first question. And the second one is how attentive are you doing with respect to providing mental health counseling as a component with respect to substance abuse?
All right,
It's
so
the mental health component I'm interested in.
first question, if you don't mind me taking that one, Judge Law. The recidivism rate is half or less. And so what we do is we track the data 2 years out from graduation and 4 years out from graduation. And a recent development at the state level is now, in order to have a sobriety court, a veterans court, a drug court, we have all 3, you have to be certified by the state. And we're actually pretty proud that we were the very first court in the entire state to get that certification. We use all best practices. We we basically are doing it right, at least we think so. And so that helps with recidivism. It's never perfect, though. You're absolutely right. People will graduate, and every once in a while, we'll find out they got another offense. But it's better than it is without specialty court. And we're firm believers in that. The numbers play that out. And
The numbers do show that. Obviously, when somebody's being monitored intensely for 18 months, they generally will do well. Now, do we have people that don't? Yes, and we have to deal with them, and they have to end up in jail typically. But really, we're starting to look at putting in something in place after that monitoring's done. They've graduated, but we're getting some feedback too that, hey, once monitoring's done, once probation's done, once I'm out, just out on my own, they let that counseling lapse sometimes, even though it's up to them at this point, and not having communication with the judge continually, or probation officer, or group sessions, or meetings, that sometimes they can get caught up in that again. And so we're trying to find something, and we can't force somebody as judges to do it. We're trying to find some sort of community organization that we can shift them toward after they're done and having graduated. I think you asked a question about mental health services as well, and how often do we look at something like that?
I mean, do the judges take into consideration that maybe this is somebody that needs some mental health? Because we haven't really, as a society, been real attuned to addressing mental health issues. So how sensitive are you to mental health
I would
issues?
say we're hyper vigilant about it.
very much so, yes.
Those reports, part of the reason we get those reports is mental health issues. That's not something we necessarily can pick up just having a conversation with somebody in the courtroom. So we send it down to an expert who will interview somebody, go through their records, do a background check, everything they need to do, and then they'll write a report for us, and that's usually where that'll show up. Now, sometimes the person's family, the defendant's family will talk to the probation department too, say, hey, there's an issue here. But probation officers can pick it up, flag it for us, recommend some services, places that the defendants can go to get those services, and I would guess 100% of the time, if we're convinced there's an issue there, we're going to order that to be put in place.
I mean, in the criminal cases we see, there are three things that we see over and over again: drug abuse, alcohol abuse, and mental health issues. And rarely are they exclusive. Most of the time, there's a combination of all of that going on. And so we're very vigilant about that. Again, the services are not what we would want them to be, but we are trying to always place people with services for whatever they need, whether it's substance abuse counseling or mental health or a combination.
And sometimes people just made a poor choice one night. So obviously, we deal with those people differently. If they're not necessarily a threat to the community, have learned, don't have a mental health issue, maybe don't have an alcohol issue, drug issue, but still did something wrong, broke the law, we deal with that a little differently than somebody that continually is committing crimes over and over because of one of those issues.
Right.
Councilmember Friesian.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So with drugs and alcohol being such a rampant issue in our community, I think any little step that you're taking to help progress and help show people and be proactive about stopping unwanted behavior is important. So thank you so much for everything that you're doing to be proactive and to just stop the problem before it happens. Stop the issue, show teenagers in high school or in middle school what's going on, and this could be you in the system. You don't want this.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much for all you're doing, and Judge Bondi as well.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Kivel.
Yeah, I agree with that. If you create an environment that they recognize just how jammed up they can get, they're much more likely to try to stay away from that. And speaking to the addictive aspects of those other issues, I'm delighted to hear that you're acting the way that you are, because the idea of setting somebody out without any kind of help at all and expecting a different result ultimately down the road, it seems pretty ridiculous. So
Sure.
that's very helpful to try to take some action to set them on the right track.
Obviously, we wish we had a magic wand that we
Sure.
could just wave and everything's fixed, everybody's problems. It doesn't work that way. So we're trying to do the best we can with the tools we're given as judges.
Well, it's certainly hard work, but I mean, with no effort, you're never going to find a solve.
So
And
we see it.
we try different things. If individual counseling doesn't work for maybe a particular defendant, let's try some group counseling. If this doesn't work, we'll try 12-step meetings. I mean, we try to give them an entire tool belt, if you will,
Right.
of tools to try to work with, because that is a lot of hard work to overcome addiction,
Like everything, it's not one size fits all, so that's very
for
good.
sure.
Councilmember Walton, you had something?
Thank you. It's wonderful that you guys have the tool belt that you have, but it sounds like you have a magic wand for some of these kids and adults, and you mentioned Wednesday at the Wixom Community Center, but you didn't mention a time?
6 o'clock. That was on
6
me. I
p.m.?
apologize. 6 o'clock. We usually have some moderately good cookies and some pop too, so it's quite a
Moderately might be
festival.
a stretch, but we'll have cookies.
I'm there then.
No, but it really, it's rewarding to see at least once. I know Don Green, the supervisor from Milford, comes every single time, and I feel remiss that you guys don't get an invite. That's
Yeah, we'll fix
something
that.
that we will fix immediately.
Great.
Well, we got a better invite. We got a personal invite.
Yeah,
so
personal
thank you.
invitation.
Right.
Thank you.
We'll get you a front row seat.
I got a question.
Oh, Councilmember Kenny, and then I'll come over to you.
Okay.
So my wife just had an opportunity to participate down there. She was actually in your courtroom, Judge Reeds, and she actually was very impressed with the efficiency, the fairness that was displayed in the trial that she was a juror for. So I mean, she
Excellent.
she
Is this
I mean,
another plant? He does this to me every time.
$20.
We'll talk later.
Judge
Okay.
Law, $20
But no,
is all
seriously,
it costs.
she was impressed. I mean, she hadn't been called for jury duty in quite some time, so it was much different than the last time she'd been there. Been a number of years, but was very impressed with the fairness that was displayed to the defendant under the circumstances, and thought it was
I appreciate that.
actually a pretty good experience. So.
We do our best, and I don't think I did it at the beginning, and I don't want to forget to do that. I want to also join Judge Law in letting you know how lucky I feel to be able to work with Judge Bondi and Judge Law. Not only are they intelligent, they're honorable people, but they're my friends. And when I go to work and I have colleagues that, if I have an issue and I want to bounce a legal concept on someone, I can just walk down the hall, and I feel very lucky to be able to do that, so.
Guess who he thinks is going to buy him lunch tomorrow? Let's try.
Oh, well, worth a shot.
Councilmember Richards, you had something?
Yeah, just a question. Both the gentlemen, in civil matters, okay, when a case starts out in your court, what's the elevator point where it goes to, you have to kick it up to circuit court, where it goes to a higher level, in civil matters, not criminal?
$25,000. Once it's over that amount, we have to send it to circuit court. And most of the time in district court, that doesn't happen, but every once in a while, a case will evolve where the dollar amount might change based on a new count, or an added third party, for example, might be brought into a case, and that raises the total amount to a point where we would send it to circuit court.
When did that,
25's the level for us.
when did that change?
It's been that way for quite some time.
Boy, okay, all right.
Could I ask $25,000, what's the value of?
How so?
What is that value
US dollars.
related to? Well, no, I mean, but I mean, is that the potential fine or the loss of
That might be the
whatever
loss of the
materials that
contract,
were
for example.
stolen or what?
Right.
Okay.
Damages.
Thank you.
The total, whatever those might be, but the total damages.
Okay.
All right, well, I want to thank you
Thank you
both
again.
for coming out. Very informative, and thank you
thank you.
very much.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
for having us.
Feel free to come on by anytime, okay?
We'll see you Wednesday.
Thanks for coming out.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, thank you.
All right, we will move on to new business number 2, which is air handler unit replacement for the entrance works at the wastewater treatment plant.
The wastewater treatment plant has had an inspection performed by EGLE of the state of Michigan in June of 2019. We were informed that we need to replace the air handler unit for the wet well. The ice air handling unit that services the entrance works was abandoned and it was beyond repair. This item was budgeted and planned for in this year's budget. We've obtained 5 bids for the project. Direct replacement with the explosion-proof model as engineered by HRC is determined to be the most logical course action and curve the design of the roof. 4 of the 5 bids have elected to go with ice unit to replacement. Sorry, this is echoing. We have a quote from Covenant Environmental for your review, as well as the direct replacement unit and bid sheets detailing all the quotes. Doug is here to answer any questions you may have. The possible course of action is to approve or deny the purchase and installation of the air handler unit that provides ventilation and the heat for the entrance works by Covenant Environmental in the amount of $50,210.
Councilmember Kennedy, go ahead.
Obviously, we've already approved this, it's already budgeted. We already know the situation that's over there, so I'd like to go ahead and make the motion to approve the purchase of a new air handler unit for the entrance works at the wastewater treatment plant to be installed by Covenant Environmental for the amount of $50,210 as outlined in the current budget under line item 592.557.970.
No support.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay. We have a motion by Kennedy, Councilmember Kennedy, supported by Councilmember Kivel, to approve the purchase of a new air handler unit for the entrance works at the wastewater treatment plant to be installed by Covenant Environmental for the amount of $50,210 as outlined in the current budget under line item 592.557.970. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. We will move on to new business number 3 now. Purchase and installation of a new 1,050-gallon double-wall diesel storage tank that supplies fuel to the generator set at the wastewater treatment plant.
The diesel storage tank at the
A little feedback.
wastewater treatment plant is well past its use and in danger of failure. This could cause potential catastrophic problems and should be replaced as soon as possible. We received 3 quotes, and although Corrigan is not at the lowest, they provided the service for the switching of the tanks. This unplanned expenditure can be purchased out of the building and equipment maintenance account under 592-557-931, and all quotes are attached for your review. Possible course of action: approve or deny the purchase of the installation of new double-wall tank for the generator at the wastewater treatment plant for $5,012.42, plus fuel transferring fees by Corrigan Oil Company. The lowest bid, Staffco, estimated delivery charge of $350, but their quote includes no installation or ability to transfer the diesel fuel. They do not offer service to remove the current tank and place the new on the existing concrete pad. The attached motion is for your review. Doug's here to answer any questions you may have.
This seems pretty straightforward. The only question I wanted to ask was this Staffco, do they typically do new installs or something, or sell to a new
Yes, yeah.
facility? Yeah, okay.
I spoke with them, and they said, yeah, we'll get it to you, but it'll be about $350. And then I started digging in and saying, okay, what else is there? And he's like, that's pretty much it.
Right, well, I
He's
mean,
gonna drop the tank and leave you. So I was like, that's not gonna work.
at least in this area, Corrigan's the giant of this stuff. So I'd like to make the motion for Corrigan Oil to, we'll purchase from Corrigan Oil the diesel storage tank for the generator for $5,012.42 plus fees to transfer the diesel fuel and charge the corresponding line item 557-931 as it is the building and equipment maintenance.
I'll support.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Discussion? Councilmember Kennedy?
Doug, I want to compliment you on the fact that you obviously looked at the big picture on this. It wasn't the initial purchase price, and that's what, so that you got what you needed to do the job and do it in its entirety and do it properly. So as opposed to just coming in with something that was going to be, a lower price and then finding out that all these add-ons were going to occur later, I appreciate that you did the due diligence to come with what the full picture is going to look like. The other question I had is there had been some discussions previously about upgrading the controls for that generating unit. Is that still something that you're looking at down the road on that, or?
I think we're gonna keep the same controls as of right now.
Okay.
So the generator itself is working fine, so down the road, we might have to address
Okay, I
that
was
issue.
just curious where that stood, so
Yeah.
that's great, thanks, appreciate it.
All right.
Councilmember Richards, go ahead.
Thank you. Doug, what happens to the old tank? Do they take it with them, or do we get to keep it and reuse it for another purpose?
Excellent question. I actually brought that up myself, because I was curious. I didn't want to be stuck with it if I didn't have to be, because they can't transport it evidently. That's gonna be our responsibility to deal with that tank at that point.
Then, in other words, if we could resell it, okay? If we repaired it a little bit and sell it for somebody's water tank to water their corn crop or their field or something.
We would have that option, correct.
Okay, good idea, great.
Councilmember Kurtzwell.
I think what I would like to compliment you on is that you were there in the right place at the right time in order to discover that it was in danger of failure. I think that just speaks to your credentials speaks to the great management decision that the city manager made in hiring you, is that you've got that training and ability to jump on something. And when I saw the word catastrophic, I said, we got the right guy in the right place. So I just want to thank you. So.
Thank you, no problem. I know exactly what it would entail if that thing did leak, and then we'd be digging a huge hole
Yeah.
that we wouldn't want to have to
You don't want to do that, yeah.
Exactly. Got to notify Eagle, everything else, so I was like, let's not go down that road.
And that's okay. I mean, that's what we're paying you for, is to come in here and to let us know what needs to be replaced, because we know that there's a lot of issues over there. But to hang on to it for another 2 years and wait for it to actually have the emergency, I think there's a commercial out there that says an emergency is when you have no decisions to make. So I want to thank you for your skill set that you bring to the city.
No problem.
All right, we have a motion by Councilmember Kivel, a second by Councilmember Walton, to approve the purchase from Corrigan Oil Company of a double-wall diesel storage tank for the generator at the wastewater treatment plant for $5,012.42, plus fees to transfer the diesel and charge to the corresponding line item 592.557-931, as it is for building and equipment maintenance. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. On to new business number 4 this evening, purchase and installation of a new security fence for the water tower located on Mill Street.
The newly refurbished water tower currently has no fencing. As was discussed in the budget process, we've obtained 3 quotes and would like to move forward to have the vinyl-coated high-security fence installed around the perimeter of the base of the tower. This is an item that we have budgeted for in the current budget year under line item 592-556-970. All quotes are attached for your review. Additional decorative fence will be added at this project at a later date. The quotes for the fence, 3 quotes are included within your packet. Possible courses of action: approve or deny the purchase of the installation of the new 8-foot vinyl-coated commercial-grade security fence for the Mill Street Water Tower for $9,500 by DeBoard Brothers Fence Company.
Councilmember Kivel?
I just want to make the motion that we approve the purchase of the fencing from DeBoard for $9,500. Everybody else is going to read the whole thing again, so I need to.
We have a motion from Councilmember Kivel, supported by Councilmember Kennedy. Any further discussion?
No.
Councilmember Richards?
Hi, Doug, I've had some contact with DeBoard Fencing in the past. They're highly recommended, okay, and I've observed their work that they've done at the cemetery on the fences and such and other places. They always leave a signature sign on their work. And they're excellent company. Personally, I didn't have too great a look trying to make a quote for a third party, but that's, expected, I suppose. But just the same, they're highly, highly respected around this area. Thank you.
Councilmember Kennedy?
Doug, just out of curiosity, what's the estimated installation deadline once it's approved? They give you a ballpark on that?
When he could start by, or?
Yeah.
I spoke with Phil, I've been speaking with him ongoing here, and told him as soon as I have approval, I'll call him the next day, and hopefully he'll get us on the books in the next 3 to 4 weeks, it sounds like,
Okay.
to get started. And once he starts, I don't think it'll take him very long at all, so.
Okay, thanks.
Great. We have a motion from Councilmember Kivel, supported by Councilmember Kennedy, to approve the purchase and installation from DeBoard Brothers Fence Company of an 8-foot vinyl-coated commercial-grade security fence for $9,500 for the Mill Street Water Tower, as outlined in the current budget under line item 592-556-970. All of those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. All opposed? Motion passes.
Nice work on all of those. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug.
All right. Moving on to new business number 5 this evening is the South Lyon Educational Foundation Charitable Gaming License.
The Southline Educational... It's not my pacemaker. The Southline Educational Foundation is a nonprofit group established to benefit Southline Communication Schools by promoting the educational mission of the Southline Community Schools. They are attempting to get a charitable gaming license from the state of Michigan for an event they will be holding. They're asking for the attached resolution to be passed by the local government, stating that they are recognized as a nonprofit organization in the community. The attached documents include an IRS exemption letter from the state of Michigan and bylaws of the Southline Educational Foundation. Possible course of action is to approve or not approve their request.
Councilmember Parisian, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to let the body know that I participate on this foundation, or this nonprofit, as a board member, and I would like to recuse myself from discussion as well as voting, even though I don't have a direct interest financially or none. Thank you.
Councilmember Kurtzwell.
I'll make the motion. I move to approve the request from the Southline Educational Foundation of Southline, Michigan, County of Oakland, to be recognized as a nonprofit organization operating in the community for the purpose of obtaining charitable gaming licenses.
Thank you, Councilmember Walton. Any further discussion? Motion by Councilmember Kurtzwell, supported by Councilmember Walton.
Dan?
Yes. Sorry.
Was there a motion on your request for recusal,
No, she just, no.
Councilwoman Parisian?
I'd like to make the motion to recuse myself.
I just wanted to make sure that it was clear that she is, it has to be by unanimous consent of council, and so I just wanted to make sure that council was allowing her to abstain from voting and participating.
Okay.
I can't make that motion, though.
You can.
Okay. Well, in that case, do you want to move the first motion, or do you want to let me make mine?
Lisa?
You make your motion
Thank
first.
I'd like to make the motion that I, Mary Parisian, recuse myself from discussion as well as abstain from voting.
I'll support.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Lisa. Now, we have a second motion on the floor supported by, or motion by Councilmember Kurtzwell, supported by Councilmember Walton, to approve the request from the Southline Educational Foundation of Southline, Michigan, County of Oakland, to be recognized as a nonprofit organization operating in the community for the purpose of obtaining charitable gaming licenses. All of those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. We'll move on to the budget this evening. Anyone have anything on the budget this evening?
Thank
Okay.
you, Mr. Mayor.
No problem.
Okay, thank you.
We will move on to the manager's report tonight.
A couple items I want to bring up. I will make it short based upon the feedback that I've been getting. The business survey has gone out. As was mentioned earlier, we did receive 17 responses. We still do have another week that we will be accepting responses for those surveys. Once we get all the information compiled, we will forward it on to council, as well as provide the information on the city website. I want to thank everybody that came out for the Real Men Wear Pink event that I had last Friday night, the warm reception from the public, the people that came out at various hours of the evening. Thanks for not coming out between 1:30 a.m. and 4 a.m. I appreciate that. But I want to let everybody know we appreciate being able to participate that, as well as have it at the farmers market event. This event will continue all the way through the month of October. The next city council meeting will be having the police in-car camera purchase coming before city council. I want to update you on traffic counts. We still have the Traffic Improvement Association devices still on Pontiac Trail. Those will be picked up, removed. We may be having additional ones coming out to check speeds, because we are checking traffic numbers as well as speeds all along Pontiac Trail to assist us with reviewing traffic patterns as it affects businesses and residents within the community. I did provide some information in your packet regarding attorney bills and whether including them within the city packets. And also that we are reviewing the athletic field uses for SLERA. We're discussing charging outside entities who are not part of the Junior League or other South Lyon community groups fee to use those fields. We want to ensure that the fields are accessible to South Lyon teams. And we are discussing that, and we'll be bringing something back before City Council at a later date. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Councilmember Kibble.
I was curious, do we have ample storage, data storage for the cameras, the police car cameras?
Yes.
We do?
Yes.
Okay, that's not something that's going to be contingent on this next package with IT, whoever. it is.
Completely separate?
Yeah, okay. Great, thank you.
One last item I did want to mention, we include within your package information regarding the 8-mile to 9-mile Dixboro Road construction. Even though it does say road is closed, it's just closed for through traffic. You'll still be able to allow access for residents as well as access volunteer park for any of the events or practices or games that they may be having on that field.
I got a question.
Councilmember Kennedy, go ahead.
So Paul, I mean, you mentioned we have 17 responses to the business survey back at this point. What was the target population? What percent does that represent at this point out of all the businesses that received the survey? Do we know? You know, because initially this started with taking the inventory to see how many businesses we actually had out there, and then this was pushed out to those businesses.
That's still less than 10%.
Okay.
Councilmember Richards, you had something?
Yes, Paul, in McCaddy Park, I'd much rather ask this question openly than speculate in my council comments. What is the completion time for Peerless Midwest? Peerless Midwest. Do you anticipate they're going to be in McCaddy Park working on the well?
Doug, maybe you want to answer that?
They're going to be at the park tomorrow, I'm told. Yeah. So according to Ron Beason, he's actually spoke directly with them. They're going to be there at the park tomorrow to finish the install of the meter. Once that component is then put into place, we then have to be able to communicate with that meter. So we have to have UIS come in, then they have to do their end of it, which has already started, which would be communication with SCADA back at the plant, at our plant, wastewater treatment plant, where we kind of watch all the water facilities all at the same time. So Peerless will be out of the way probably pretty shortly tomorrow. They should be picking up all the pipe that was there that they had used temporarily to flush. That's all going to be picked up, and then the meter's going to go in. I think that will be one day. I don't know for sure. I can't say for sure, but they should be out of there tomorrow or the next day.
I walked down the creek to the bank, okay, and looked at that latest flushing operation.
Mm-hmm.
It was much less than the previous one, which was up to 1,400 gallons a minute. This was lower volume, but it lasted for a week. I just wondered why that was.
I can say it was because we needed to pass a back T test. So we had to, in order to be able to give in the well, we're not actually allowed to have the well until it passed back T tests, which it had to pass 2 in a row. So we went above and beyond the 2 in a row, and we did 4 in a row. This before we said, okay, unhook all these pipes that you guys put up here temporarily. Instead of just throwing chlorine in there and trying to do it that way, they said we need to flush it and run this thing. So they recommended 24 hours, but we ran it for a couple more days longer than that at a way lower volume than what we were pushing initially. So it didn't erode the bank. They had it set up a lot better, and then they could move on down the road. So.
I've noticed, I go over there every day, okay? I've noticed the grading has been done around the site where the new well is in the ground.
Mm-hmm.
Are they preparing for a footing to be put in there before the building is erected, or is that going to have just a fence around it?
No, that's going to have concrete foundation. We're prepping that right now in case Peerless takes a little longer than we perceive they might take. I've already told DPW we need to get the concrete floor in because we're going to put a building, a temporary structure of some sort, pretty solid structure over that number 4 offset well.
Is Peerless Midwest the contractor for the construction of the building?
No, that's up to us.
Huh?
That's entirely up to us, what we do.
Oh. So just the well, and they're out of there, okay?
You got it.
And
Just
we
like they
have to-
did 6.
We have to bid on, or let somebody bid on the,
Already started.
already started, okay. Good, thank you very much. I didn't, was
No problem at all.
Councilmember Kennedy, go ahead.
Paul, I'd like to get back to the business survey. So we're showing a less than 10% response rate at this particular point. I'm looking over the project plan for this, for the business survey. I don't see an activity listed. Are there any plans to go back to the businesses and see if there's any way to increase their response rate beyond just that initial 10%? I mean, just to follow up with them and say, hey, did you get this? Are you going to respond? I mean, you know, whatever we can do to generate interest in it, to get, you know, maybe a broader picture of what the feedback truly is, as opposed to just this little pinpoint, if you will. You know, 10% out of
We had not planned that. If council deems to do that, we can do that. We had no idea what type of response that we'd be getting. I mean, usually if you get a 20% response, that's very good for any type of surveys that are put out there, but that's certainly something that we can do. It would be, again, sending out another 250 to 300 letters to all those businesses and ask them to respond and to submit it again. It's basically, we'd be sending out the exact same letter.
Councilmember Parisian, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Paul, what about just a quick email, just a reminder to the businesses? Because we do have an email list with the list of email
I have
addresses.
to check to see if we have an email list for every single business owner or the person who would be potentially opening those up, but we can certainly look at that. If that's what council wants to do, we can definitely do that.
So I can't speak for the whole body, but I think it might be best and a good use of city resources and time if we send out the email instead of having to go through and send out the letter as well as the survey, all that information all over again. If we just send out a quick email to the businesses that we do have the addresses for, or email addresses for, and whatever ones we don't, then we can personally go and see and say, hey, these X amount of businesses that we don't have your contact information, please be aware that the due date is September 30th for this.
That will take quite a bit of time, is trying to get that done, but we certainly can do that. We'll have to look at how we can handle the staffing levels with elections and other things coming up, because those are going to be the same individuals that we're talking about working on that sort of thing. They're going to be working on preparation for the election within the next 30 days, so
That's
we
true,
can certainly
but
do that.
The whole point of the survey was communication to understand where the businesses stand and how they feel about the city of South Lyon and what we're doing for them. So it would be completely pointless to do a survey that's only going to give you less than 10% of the feedback that we're looking for. How can we improve? We need more feedback. So I think if we don't take a proactive measure to send out an email stating, hey, just a quick reminder, friendly reminder, this is the due date, September 30th, please don't forget. It doesn't have to be anything elaborate. And once you type that email, you send it out. It shouldn't take that long.
I'll have to look at what it is, but we will have to go through and somebody will have to enter every single one of those email addresses. So I'll look and see how we can merge that, but I'll talk with staff about that and what the time frame is for getting something like that done.
Thank
I
you.
can't answer real quickly, so I
No,
just have
that's
to look at
perfect.
that.
Thank you.
Councilmember Kibble?
Well, just to kind of stack on that, we've got them on, I know that there was a good many of them that were on some documents that early on in this whole thing. So if it's just a, copy and paste to a general blast to everybody, if we got 20 more, we'd be much better off than what we're at right now. So, if we only have half of the addresses for people, it's still better than, for the effort that it'll take to end up sending that out. I think it's certainly worth it.
Councilmember Kennedy, go ahead.
And, maybe we wait, you give them the 2 weeks that are remaining, maybe we'll have a flood of responses in the last 2 weeks. I don't know.
I think we should do it
Before
first.
beginning the extra effort, just to see what we're truly going to end up with. I mean, maybe this is just the initial trickle, and maybe there's a flood coming before we begin, doing something else.
I personally think we should do it now. I don't think people are waiting until the deadline is at the end in case they have a change of mind and some answer they put on it.
I agree.
Anyone else have anything for Paul tonight? Okay, great. We will move on to public comment. Please remember to state your name and address.
Hello, I'm Judy Keeling, 62180 Arlington Circle, number 5. I went to the park with my grandchildren, and I was surprised that the wheelchair swing isn't up yet. And I know that you don't control that, but I'm hoping that it's at least up by next spring. If you could look into it, if there's anything more we need to do, fundraise or anything, I'd be more than glad to help with it.
Thank you. Before we go to council comments this evening, Chief Vogel was absent earlier during Fire Chief report. Chief, if you have anything, come on down. Thank you.
Sorry for the lateness. We were at a fire on Dorchester. Small basement fire. We quickly got it out. Excuse me, I took a lot of smoke on that one. Also, for those of you who don't know, Saturday we had a fire at Michigan Seamless Tube. It was in pickle number 2 house, and I have no idea what that means, but that's where it was. Staff was great at MST, helped us find the fire, get it out quickly. We were assisted by Lyon Township, Green Oak, and Salem. And finally, I need to thank the schools. They're allowing me to have a gator for Pumpkin Fest. It took a lot of begging, but I finally found one. Chief Sovic got it for me. The plan is we're going to have staff on all weekend, Friday night, and the football game, all day Saturday, and then half Saturday, or Sunday, excuse me. Plan is to put some fire extinguishers and medical supplies in the gator. We learned last year we had a lot of medical calls and a small fire that trying to get a truck through there is impossible, trying to run from the station's too far. So hopefully we watched Kathy Swan get around with hers, and I said that's going to be me next year. So luck, the schools really helped. So
that's great.
Excellent.
Any questions?
Anyone got anything for Chief Vogel tonight? Thanks, Chief.
Thanks. Sorry I was late.
All right, we'll move on to council comments this evening. Councilmember Kurtzwell, go ahead and start us off.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. I really appreciate that. You know, my comments tonight are really going to be centered and focused around memories of Ted Wallace. Politics can wait. First, I would like to thank Ken Mahalik, the Southline Police Officer, Timothy Rapp, and Sean from Peters True Value for assisting in the removal of the huge tree branch that snapped off of a tree in Paul Baker Park during the storm on September 13th. As Sean from Peters True Value said, this is what you do for your community, you help. You know, Ted was a character. I don't know what else to say. He was a character. I agreed with Ted on some things, and I disagreed with him on most things. But whatever he did it with conviction, and he did it with passion. A couple of years ago, Ted asked me about my mom and dad. I told him that they were coming to visit me, and Ted wanted to meet my dad. My dad and I had lunch with Ted at Brown's Root Beer, and it was a great 2 hours with Ted. My dad was so excited to have had lunch with the mayor of South Lyon, and he and Ted chatted endlessly about careers, schooling, politics, and life in a small town. Actually, they had a lot in common. I am ever, ever so thankful to Ted Wallace for having such a great memory of a wonderful lunch with my dad. Oh, and by the way, as I recall it, I think my dad and I paid for the lunch. And when my father passed several years ago, it was Ted Wallace that could not have been nicer to me. Ted came to me, he was absolutely wonderful. You really don't forget what people do in your time of grief. So I wanted to thank Ted and his family for that. Paul Baker Park, for many of you that may not know, I have volunteered in one capacity or another in helping to keep Paul Baker Park in good condition for almost 15 years. It was my first community volunteer project I took on when Mayor Jeff Potter appointed me to the Park and Rec Commission. Over the years, the landscape in Paul Baker Park has changed, but one thing did not change. Ted Wallace always thanked me for helping to maintain the park. Every year, Ted would find a way to say, thank you for what you're doing in Paul Baker Park. This year was no different, but the conversation we had went beyond a simple thank you. This spring, when I was working in Paul Baker Park, DPW and Rose and I were there, but this was earlier. And I was trying to get it ready and thinking what had to be done for the Memorial Day Parade. DPW did all the heavy lifting. I'm sure not going to take any credit for that. All I did was just pull the weeds and get some poison ivy. Ted saw me in the park and he stopped, and I had a great conversation with Ted Wallace. He thanked me for working in the park and getting it ready for Memorial Weekend. Then he spoke about his days on the Cable Commission. He's right. He raised a whole generation of Southline residents on TED TV. TED TV was wholesome, it was clean, it was about sports, it was about the Pumpkin Fest parade, it was about Christmas lights and the subdivisions. He made parents proud when they saw their young athletes on TV, with Ted calling plays as if they were in an NFL playoff. Then after a while, after he got talking about that, we moved on to other topics. I kind of told Ted, I said, you're nuts. Whatever, Ted. But as he got ready to leave, he said to me, you know that tree that was planted in the park for the man who lost his life for me in St. Croix? If I'm unable to keep an eye on it, can you do it for me? And I kind of laughed. I said, what are you doing, going to St. Croix early? He said, I don't know where I'm going. He said, I just want to make sure that tree is taken care of. I said, Ted, it's not a problem. Don't worry about it. Everything is fine. And he went on his way. Little did I know that 5 months later, the torch would be passed to me, and I would be keeping my eye on that tree in Paul Baker Park, the tree that was planted for the man who gave up his life for Ted in St. Croix. So tonight, I wanted to remember the good things about Ted Wallace. He and I politically bantered, but at the end of the day, I always respected him. And when I was at his funeral mass, some of the same topics Ted and I conversed about in May came full circle. Father Stan in his sermon spoke about that tragic event in St. Croix, but as I sat in that church pew, all I heard was, keep an eye on that tree. The 4 eulogies that were spoken in one way or another had little snippets about Ted TV, a nickname, his passion for sports, and yes, how he did not get paid for his work on the Cable Commission. So I would hope that whatever commentary or memory that the city has for Ted Wallace, months to come, years to come, that there is some recognition, obviously, of his commitment to the Cable Commission, of his commitment to youth sports, because it obviously meant a lot to him. For those that were not at the funeral home, for those that were not at the Mass, Ted Wallace was buried in a shirt that had South Lyon Cable TV on it with his name. If that isn't telling and revealing about that man's commitment and love for what he did in the past for this city, I think that was it. So to Ted's children, to Ellen, to his soon-to-be first granddaughter, prayers, comfort, love, and support are extended to you from me and my husband, Ken. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Kurtzwell, for the heartfelt comments. Councilmember Walton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There's a couple of things I wanted to bring up really quick. I want to thank Judge Law and Judge Reeds for coming here tonight and giving us their little speech. It was very interesting and very informative. I also want to thank Heinen and Engineering for their open house over the weekend. It was a great time, and I learned a lot. And one of the things I found very interesting is they have a press in there from 1887 that was when the came from one of the Ford plants, and they actually used that to stamp the Heinen Engineering logo into all of their equipment and everything that they make. So I found that very interesting and very neat, and I think it's great that they repurposed it in such a fashion. And the last thing I wanted to bring out was Witch's Hat and their special Martin's Hardware brew. It's a very interesting, very neat thing, and just the way that our businesses support each other here in this town. It just, again, I always talk about our how we support each other and how our residents support each other, but look at the businesses supporting each other too, so that's really phenomenal. And again, my thoughts and prayers are with the Wallace family as well. I cannot say anything more than Councilmember Kurtzwell has. It was a very, very, very heartfelt message that she had, and lots to say, but definitely grew up on TED TV myself as a lifetime resident, and there's not a memory that goes back to childhood to elementary school without Ted Wallace in it. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Richards?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to mention several things, and I too wish to speak a little bit about Ted Wallace. We got stuff that's going on that doesn't get mentioned very often. For instance, out to Brookdale Plaza, the beat goes on. Those people are out there redoing the front of those buildings, and it's getting bigger and bigger. Now, nobody's told them they had to do it, and they're doing it with sandstone and fine decorative stuff, okay? It's got to be a tremendous amount of money, and whether there's a business occupying the unit or not, they're putting all new frontage on them. And hats off to them. Thank you ever so much. You're improving the quality of the plaza, and we appreciate it very much. Anyway, I just wanted to mention that. They get their dues. I can skip the McCaddy Park item. I want to make something about what Bob has talked about at 113 North Lafayette. I walk over there and take pictures and walk in and talk to them a little bit, staying out of their way, okay? They don't need a guy with a cane walking around too much. But anyway, I go over there and talk to them a little bit, and I'm absolutely flabbergasted. They're doing a beautiful job, and everything they are doing has been architecturally approved. Building committee, our building department, planning commission, everything's been approved. Whatever they do, it's a miracle, and I'm very glad to see any of it, whatever it's coming out. Okay, next item, I want to give some praise to our city manager for his endeavor at the farmer's market location with the pink chair. And in a way, that's why I wore a little pinkish type of sweater that's faded into raspberry or something, I guess. And I wanted to pay some recognition for his actions beyond the call of duty for this event to our city. And I stopped by a couple times to say okay, and best wishes, be safe, take care, and good luck. And so on and so forth. And I admire that, and we all got to look out for our city manager for the job he's doing for us, and that's why I felt it was my duty, since I'm a nearby resident, to show up there and say, good show, you know. Thank you, Paul. Okay. Before I mention Ted Wallace, I'll talk about the historic tour tomorrow. Our Historical Society goes to Northville. We leave at 10 a.m. from the village to go to the mill race village in Northville with our society, while we be met by other people. This is an annual affair, okay? We go on a tour every year, once a month. Okay, the last item is Mr. Wallace. Try to get through this. I appreciate the way, first of all, I didn't know about it till later. People asked me uptown, did you hear about Ted Wallace? And I said, no, I saw him last night. He's fine as far as I knew, but he'd already passed. Mr. Zalnick sent out communications to everyone, but I get it written, and I was one of the last to find out, I guess, for sure, confirmation. But I appreciate his efforts. Shows he was on top of it at 9:06 a.m. in the morning. He knew about it, and he was, you know, right there sending it out to us. After the last council meeting, we all left here, I was the last person to see Ted Wallace alive. Okay, I talked to him up at the gas station, where I always go usually after a council meeting. He was up there getting a lottery ticket, and his voice seemed a little weak, but he seemed in fairly good spirits at the time. And of course, he was going on his way home, and he goes over there to buy his lottery ticket sometimes, you know. We had a very nice discussion, talked about, the last topic we talked about was the TED TV and how we miss the football games. But oh well, it's time moves on. We talked a little bit about the council meeting and South Lyon politics, and we had a light discussion. Other times we've had serious discussions of praise and criticism also, but none with that at this point in time. Ted was a lifetime member of the Historical Society along with his wife Ellen, and in the succeeding succeeding Historical Society meeting last week, I brought up the subject of all of our mortality and how we look at the problem here today and gone tomorrow, and our obligation and our stewardship to our historic duty to preserve the records of the city of South Lyon. Anyway, Ted was a friend to all. We will all miss his spirit, his sincerity, his leadership, and his grasp of the big picture and the bigger issues at hand. Okay, and also when I was injured, as you all know, I've had some injuries over the last 6 years. Ted was right over there at my house, knocking on the door. How are you? Are you okay? Is there anything I can do to help you? How are you going to get around? And so on and so forth. And not everybody does that. It's always valuable to have good friends that care and are sincere and genuine. Anyway, Ted was one in a million, okay? Certainly was, and I'm sure all of us have our memories, but I'll leave it at that, okay? Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Richards. Nice job. Councilmember Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, as already been mentioned, 2 weeks ago we lost a lifelong resident of South Lyon, Ted Wallace, a husband, a father, grandfather, a neighbor, former teacher, council member, and mayor for the city, who will be missed by many. It was impressive to see the number of folks who attended Ted's funeral, and just as impressive was the number of businesses and individuals from our community that contributed food and other items for the gathering afterwards. What a great community we live in. On another note, I want to congratulate our city manager, Paul Zelnick, for his 24-hour event highlighting breast cancer awareness and raising funds for the American Cancer Society. He says he managed to get a couple hours of sleep overnight last Friday, but I think he may be overestimating that. It certainly wasn't an easy effort, but it was certainly for a very worthwhile cause. I also want to recognize and congratulate Doug Buers for his 27 years of service to this community and this city. During that time, Doug was responsible for keeping all of our equipment in a safe and reliable operating condition. Doug will be leaving us at the end of this week. And while I don't believe he is planning to fully retire right now, he is going to pursue some other opportunities. We certainly wish him the very best as he does so, and thank him for his commitment and years of service to our city. All the best, Doug. Tomorrow, Tuesday, September 24th, the Salem South Lyon District Library will hold their first Meet the Candidate event, beginning at 7 p.m. till 9 p.m. This session will provide an opportunity to meet the 7 candidates who are running for the 3 open city council seats. Then on Thursday of this week, the Salem South Lyon District Library will host a second event where attendees can meet the candidates for mayor. This event will also run from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. And finally, this Wednesday will be the last Lake Street Cruise-In. It'll begin 1/2 hour earlier at 6 p.m. It's always a great time, so come downtown, enjoy the cars, and dining with your friends and neighbors. It's always a great time, and help us say goodbye to summer. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Kennedy. Councilmember Parisian.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have a couple things. I'm going to echo Councilmember Kennedy to meet the candidates. I say it's my mantra every single meeting. Do your homework, come prepared. It's my understanding that individuals in the audience are allowed to ask questions. They'd have to write them down, but those will be taken into consideration and asked to the candidates. So candidates, get ready. I'm excited for you. We have fantastic candidates that are in the audience. We have incumbents that are here on this side of the table. Either way, if you are constituents just listening at home, do some research. Go online, look and see who has Facebook pages, what those Facebook pages say, what are their platforms. Do those platforms align with your views and your morals or whatever it is that you think in the community is important to you? Which candidate matches? Think of some questions that you may want to ask and come prepared and ask them on the 24th. And then same thing for the mayoral candidates that Thursday. Come prepared to ask questions. Additionally, do some research in the sense of going back and looking at the videos for the incumbents that currently sit on council. So go back and watch the videos. Look and see who are the individuals who are progressing this city forward, who's asking good questions, who are the obstructionists, who doesn't work well with department heads. You want to ask yourself key questions as to how does the individual on council best fit my needs, but also best fits the community's needs. Do your research, do your homework, ask questions. If you have any questions, I won't tell you which way to vote, but I'd be certainly happy to point you in the directions of what videos to look at. Additionally, volunteers. We always need volunteers. Thank you to Gary Fagan and welcome aboard. Pumpkin Fest, I know for sure needs volunteers still. So if you are interested and you still have time, Pumpkin Fest is this weekend. Get geared up and help out. And also enjoy Pumpkin Fest. But we still do desperately need volunteers for the Cultural Arts Commission. So if you know anybody, spread the word. Thank you to Tim. Tim, you're here tonight. So it's good to have you here. And I don't know if this is like my last meeting, so I wanted to make sure to say a special shout out to Tim for all his years of service. I believe it's 7 years that he's given the city of South Lyon and the expertise he's provided us with numerous municipal transactions that we've had. And you've never failed us. You've been fantastic the whole time through. So thank you for everything you've done for the city of South Lyon. And best of luck to you in Ann Arbor. Thoughts and prayers go out to Ted Wallace's family as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Parisian. Councilmember Kibble.
Well, I wanted to congratulate Chief Fogel for the relationships that he's built with our neighbors. Saturday's fire over at the tube mill, the response times for Lyon Township as well as Green Oak Township were staggeringly good. The idea that we can have people that have our back like that, I mean, that speaks volumes of Rob reaching out and forming these bonds with the neighbors. We've had decent relationships in the past, but this has really been helpful to know that if something goes south, that we've got an awful lot of support. So that's terrific. Thank you very much. One of the things I wanted to mention about Ted, Ted and Norma, his mother, were two people that I first came in contact with when I went to City Hall back in '87. Just going over there to kind of check out when the city council meetings were and things of that nature. So not too terribly long after that, he ended up asking me if he would, or if I would be on the Parks Commission as well. We had started it after decades of it going dormant, so got things back up and running. Soon we had the bike path and things of that nature that were starting to click up. Ted was always very proud of the cable show, and that was remarkably valuable for a community of our size, that no real cable company would have gone through and put in all the infrastructure to compete with, at the time we got here, I think it was Millennium or Horizon.
Yep.
Yeah, so, people used to kind of complain to city council, why don't you guys get another cable company? And we would openly invite all of them, but we didn't have densities to justify all the costs of rewiring the city for their services. So Ted was able to take full advantage and make this community, this small little burg, able to have things an awful lot of communities at that time didn't have, with the local context and content being in their own TV and on their own cable station. So that was really remarkably cool. And I can't tell you how many people, their relationship with Ted was him as their teacher. I mean, they knew him from just being little children all the way through when they grew up and went on their own way and either lived in South Lyon or in the area, and would always end up hearkening back these stories about, their relationship with Ted. And just by the numbers of people that were at his funeral, it was pretty clear how consequential his time in this community had been. So I wanted to say rest in peace and thank him for everything that he's done for us. I'd also like to thank Tim. We've had some bumps and also some really good, strong forward progress during your run here. So you were instrumental in all of that stuff. So I just can't thank you enough for everything you've done for us. And I too hope that Ann Arbor realizes the gift that they're getting over there. So, and Lisa, I think you're going to be just fine, but but you have some big shoes to fill, so, so I'm hoping that everything works out just as you're hoping for, Jim. So I think that's all I've got. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Kivel. I want to reiterate some of the things we heard earlier, too. I want to thank Gary Fagan for coming back and getting involved in the DDA. That's going to be great. And Gary is, like Councilmember Kurtzwell said, while he mostly operates in the background, he is a major player here in town. It'll be nice to have him back involved. I want to also thank Doug Buers as well. That's a big loss. You want to talk about some big shoes to fill out there. And wish him all the best going forward. Tim, I want to thank you for being here, buddy. It was, we have some memories for sure. And we ever do that TV show, I'll be in touch. So, but I do thank you for being here. We definitely all had great things to say about you last week, but not everyone has time to sit through a council meeting to see what we wanted to say to you. So I appreciate you for being here as well. In regards to former Mayor Wallace, he was a friend and he will be missed dearly. And I thank everyone for the kind words. So with that, I will look for a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn?
Second.
Have a great night all.
Aye.
Aye.
Formality.
The momentum I need to push myself out of this chair, or you could
Need
just
an
roll me in my
ejector
car.
seat, yeah.
If you don't mind.